So this is part 2 of a 3-part series about what is schizoid personality disorder. If you haven't seen part 1, it should appear above, so you can click on that to watch it first. In the last part, we looked at the DSM-5 criteria for diagnosing schizoid personality disorder, and now we're going to look at the ICD-10 criteria. So in order to be diagnosed, you have to meet at least 4 of the following criteria. So I'll go through the list. Few, if any, activities provide pleasure. Displays emotional coldness, detachment or flattened affectivity. Limited capacity to express warm, tender feelings or anger. Little interest in sexual experiences with others. Almost always chooses solitary activities. Excessive preoccupation with fantasy and introspection. Neither desires nor has close friends or confiding relationships, or only one. Marked insensitivity to social norms and conventions. There's a little bit missing from 8, which is that it's unintentional, so it's not a deliberate rebellion. So I'll go through the list and I'll explain how I see this compared to the DSM-5. So from my point of view, I'm seeing here that there's a bit more detail than the DSM-5, so I'll point out what I mean. So when it comes to number 3, limited capacity to express warm, tender feelings or anger, this is a little bit more implying that the flattened effect could be due to an inability to express feelings rather than there not being any feelings there. So the capacity to express rather than it not being there at all, I think, is a good differentiator, which wasn't in the DSM-5. And also being specific about the sort of feelings that are difficult to express. And so I agree with this, that this is something that does give more definition to the SPD condition. And then also number 6, excessive preoccupation with fantasy and introspection. This is an addition that gives further definition that the DSM-5 doesn't, and it's leaning a bit more to what's going inside the mind of the schizoid. So I think that this is a good point to add to the list, because being very introverted, there is an inner world of the schizoid that other people don't see on the outside, that a person can be entertaining and others wouldn't know or understand. So I think this is a point that schizoids, many schizoids could relate to. And then number 8, I think, is a really good one in saying that there's an insensitivity to prevailing social norms and conventions. So people with schizoid personality disorder are usually very out of the box type of people. So following along with social traditions and norms is something that doesn't really come easily to many of us. And I would say that it isn't due to, as I said before, it's not due to rebellion or not wanting to do what's expected of us. It's just because for me personally, I think it's unnatural to go along with things that don't come from, like ideas and things that don't come from within the self, mainly. I will go into my personal experience of SPD in future videos, so I don't really want to go on a lot, but I want to make the point that there are some criteria here that do give additional definition to SPD that the DSM-5 doesn't. Also, I think it's good the fact that number 7, neither desires nor has close friends or confide in relationships, or only one. It's a point I made in the last part, that people with SPD can have like a close friend, like at least it is a possibility that the DSM-5 didn't reflect. So that's really my take on the ICD-10. I personally think that we're moving more into a lot more depth about what's going on inside the person who has SPD. You can see that some of these points are similar to the DSM-5. I will put the DSM-5 on for anybody who hasn't seen it. So I'm going to give a quick run through. So the DSM-5 was as such: no desire for enjoyment of close relationships, including those with family members, strong preference for solitary activities, little if any interest in sexual activity with another person, enjoyment of few if any activities, lacks close friends or confidence other than first degree relatives, apparent indifference to praise or criticism of others, emotional coldness and detachment or flattened affect. So I'll go back to the ICD-10. Okay, and so now you can see the difference between the two. And as I said, in my opinion, I think that the ICD-10 is giving a bit more definition. I will next be looking at Guntrip Criteria, which comes from a psychoanalytical perspective, and looking at object relation theory, which I think is the most in-depth description of criteria for Schizoid Personality Disorder. So that's what I'll be looking at in the next video, and we'll see how it varies from these two versions of the criteria for diagnosis. Okay, well, thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.